Good evening and welcome to Senator John Brooks' Support for Veterans During COVID-19 webinar. My name is Lucia Martinez, Director of Constituent Services for Senator Brooks. Thank you for joining us this evening where we have remarkable speakers that will be discussing the impact of COVID-19 on our veteran population and vital services that are available in our community. Again, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Buenas tardes, bienvenidos a nuestro webinar apoyando a los veteranos durante el periodo de COVID. Mi nombre es Lucía Martínez y tenemos aquí el día de hoy una serie de panelistas que van a hablar al apoyo a veteranos durante esta pandemia.
We have some language options this evening. We're offering Spanish translation for this event. Shortly, we're going to turn on the Zoom interpretation features and you'll see a button on your screen. If you'd like to hear this in Spanish, just click on the interpretation button and choose Spanish. If you want to hear this in English, you don't need to do anything, you can just stay on.
Les informamos que estamos ofreciendo traducción en español para este evento. En breve activaremos la función de interpretación de Zoom y usted verá el botón emergente en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Si desea escuchar esto en español, por favor haga clic en el botón de interpretación y escoja la opción que dice Spanish o español. Si quiere escuchar la interpretación en inglés, no necesitan hacer nada.
We also have 3 different Zoom application options: the chat, the raise your hand, and the question and answer. So in the chat, we will be sharing all the links throughout the webinar, so you could view in the chat all the links that will be available for you to view. And please use the raise your hand application if you're experiencing difficulty with audio or video. And the Q&A, please, you can submit your questions in that particular Q&A section application. Again, it's, I would like to introduce to you our panelists and guest speakers. We have from Senator Brooks' office, myself, Lucia Martinez. We have Joe Agavino, he's the Director of Communications. Melody Janza, she's External Relation Associate. We also have a wonderful community outreach work group. We are very grateful to them for their dedication and commitment and the time and helping us put together this event. We have part of the outreach work group, we have Jessica Fernandez. She is the Partnership Specialist in Community Engagement for the U.S. Census. Pastor Dante Gudeo, he's from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Daphne Irizarry, she's the President of LILTA. And Maria Jordan Awalam, she's the Freeport District Board of Trustees. And tonight's guest speaker, we have Denise V. Rapp. She is a trauma therapist from VIBES, the Veteran Counseling Program. Welcome. We have Sharon Chamber Murphy. She is an Army veteran, peer facilitator of the Joseph P. Dwyer Veterans Peer Support Project. We have Audrey L. Lewis. She is the Program Manager, Veteran Department of Mental Health Association Center. Delmar Green, she's the Project Coordinator for the Mental Health Association Center. And we have Melissa Pandolf. She is the Senior Veteran Service Officer from the Suffolk County Department of Labor, Licensing and Consumer Affairs. Thank you so much for being here with us today, and thank you for your service to our country. Tonight, we are going to have a very informative agenda. We are going to be discussing with our experts and the panelists. We're going to have it in the form of, having questions for them where they'll be answering and sharing a little bit about their programs. And at the end, you'll have the opportunity to ask those questions. So please, I encourage you to type your questions in the Q&A section so we could direct those questions at the end. And we also will be mentioning the importance of the census. Again, thank you for joining us. And those that are viewing us tonight, thank you. If you're a veteran, thank you so much for your service to this country. We're really grateful for everything you do. Senator Brooks usually attends these webinars, but today, unfortunately, he actually has a meeting that he is sharing with the PSEG Power with the outage that we had during, last 2 weeks. So as a result of that, he has to be in this other meeting right now. So he's the chairperson there. So he's not going to be able to be with us tonight. So we apologize for that. But, just want to let you know that the office of Senator Brooks is available. Please feel free to give us a call. Any issues or concerns you might have, the phone number is right on the screen. You could also email at brooks@nysenate.gov. And for those that have Facebook, I encourage you to please follow us on Facebook. We are constantly updating the information, and you can also view this webinar in the Facebook as well. And we have a Spanish and English Facebook. So those that are only Spanish speaking, they have the opportunity to follow Senator Brooks throughout the Facebook with the new updated information as well. At this moment, it is my privilege and honor to introduce you to our wonderful guest speakers. And I really would like to say thank you so much for being here with us, taking time from your busy schedule. I'm gonna, if I may, if you could briefly say a hello and a quick remark and share a little bit about what the organization is doing during COVID-19. So right now, I would like to introduce Audrey L. Lewis.
Thank you so much, Lucia, and a special thank you to Senator Brooks for having this wonderful webinar. It's very much needed. I represent the Mental Health Association of Nassau County. I am the program manager there. And what we do, I run the Veterans Department. And what we do is we actually have programs for veterans right now during the COVID season. We run special groups. The groups are all virtual. The purpose of the group is to provide comfort to the veterans, to prevent loneliness to veterans, to let them know that they're not alone during this pandemic season. So that's one thing that we do. We have the groups for spouses, we have groups for women veterans and family veterans, and of course, our regular incorporated group of veterans, men and women together. What we're doing is we're actually getting ready to launch in September an online virtual bereavement program for our veterans. It's going to be closed. It's going to be therapeutic, but then also we're going to have the peer-to-peer model. The peer-to-peer model is very effective with our veterans. It's free to all veterans. It's going to be throughout Long Island, Nassau County, and Suffolk County. We're going to offer, with the bereavement, workshops for veterans, their families, workshop for the providers who work with veterans as well. And if anyone is interested in being a part of the bereavement or just joining our virtual groups, they can please contact me at my office, which is listed, or my email.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Audrey. It's a pleasure to have you here tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. At this moment, I would like to introduce you to Delmar Green. Delmar, welcome and thank you for being here with us.
Good evening, and thank you so much as well. I work alongside with Audrey. I am the project coordinator. I help facilitate the groups. We have them on just about every night of the week except for Tuesdays and Fridays. So we have groups Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. To piggyback on what Audrey has said, during COVID, we have not only done our groups, but we have done couples workshops for our veterans, and we've also done virtual dinners, and we have come up with as many creative things that we can to make sure that we keep our veterans, we make sure that we're taking care of the needs of our veterans during COVID with peer groups and other activities. And you can get in touch, if you can get in touch with me, myself as well. My number is listed and my email.
Thank you very much for being here. And our next guest, we have Denise the Rap. Thank you, Denise, for being here. It's a pleasure to have you here and taking time from your busy schedule to be here as well.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation to participate in today's webinar. I'm very grateful to be able to speak on behalf of VIBES and the Veteran Counseling Program that I run. VIBES has been around for many years, about 40 years for domestic violence, sexual assault, and other family violence. But I was hired 3 years ago to launch and run a veterans counseling program, which has developed and grown quite extensively over the last 3 years. So I provide individual counseling to veterans, case management, I do outreach. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, we're not doing all those things right now, but I am still providing individual therapy via telephone, Zoom, any other type of telehealth that the veterans are able to be participating depending on the technology that they have and they're equipped with. We also go into the community for veterans that have lack of transportation or they're homeless and they're in shelters and sober houses. So I go out into the community normally, which I'm just starting to do now. I haven't been able to, obviously, but practicing social distancing and being outside, I've been able to see a couple of veterans that are definitely in need and being affected by the pandemic during this time. We also work with helping the veterans through their status upgrades. We do a lot of case management with that. I work extensively with Toro Law and the Veteran Service Agency to help them with that type of case management as well. And we have hotline services, and in VIBES we have a legal department, we have court advocacy. All our services are free to the veteran and any other clients that we have. So it's been really a very successful program because the veterans are able to have individual, where if they're connected to the VA, they don't actually have that opportunity as much to have individual counseling. And also with our program, we do not require a DD-214 and we do not require a time of 24 months of active duty to be part of the VA or to, like they have. So we're able to take on what I think is gaps in services sometimes that fall by the wayside. And if they are not connected due to PTSD, then we're able to see them, which has been a big advantage for some of our veterans that are in desperate need.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to know that there's so much wealth of information here for our veterans. So thank you very much, Denise.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. At this moment, I would like to welcome Sharon Chambers Murphy. Thank you so much for being here as well, taking time from your busy schedule. It's a privilege to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here. I'm going to be representing the Joseph Dwyer Peer Support Project in Suffolk County. I am one of the peer facilitators. I've been with the Dwyer Project since a year after it was implemented. And I'm not sure how many people are familiar with Joseph Dwyer, but that is his picture on that first slide. He was an actual Army veteran that lived on Long Island in Suffolk County, and he actually had succumbed to, I would say, his own life. He was suicide. And so this program, Joseph Dwyer, was born out of that, so that any veteran that was seeking help and they couldn't get the help that they needed, they were able to actually come to a veteran peer support program. And peers are special because they were able to relate on a different level versus a clinician. Not saying anything wrong with a clinician, because I am a social worker myself, but there's a different relationship between a veteran. So I just want to backtrack a little bit and introduce Marcel Leach is our Director of Veteran Services for the Association of Mental Health and Wellness, and then John Schultz, who is supposed to be here, is the Program Director of the Dwyer Project, and those two are my bosses who I report to. So the Dwyer Project falls under the Association for Mental Health and Wellness. But what we do and what we've been doing during the pandemic is we're still offering services online. We do Zoom meetings every single day. Online, so that our veterans do not feel alone. If they're looking for a place to go go. We have helped them. We have helped them with the. We have helped them with food. We've helped them with financial services if they are short with their bills. We have helped them with many different things. Even just support, maneuvering, getting through to the VA for appointments and things like that. So that is what we are doing during this pandemic.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you so much again for being here. I really look forward to listening to answering all the questions we're going to be having today. And at this moment, I would like to introduce to you Melissa Pandolf. Melissa, thank you for being here as well. It's a privilege to have you here. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Sure. Hi, I'm Melissa Pandolf. I just want to clarify, I work for the Suffolk County Veteran Service Agency, not the Department of Labor, but I will be speaking about the Department of Labor. They asked me to kind of do both. I'm retired military. I retired as an E7. Everybody that I work with, we're all veterans, and that's always very important to know when we're speaking with our veterans, that we are veterans ourselves. So whatever they've gone through, we can kind of relate to them, and you know, we understand them. And as veterans, they tend to open up to us a little bit more. We know more than their family members usually, so we hear some good stories. Our role is to submit service-connected claims and also pensions to the VA, and we advocate on behalf of the veteran through the VA. So we do not work for the VA, we're county employees, but we are accredited through the VA and other organizations to help advocate for veterans to make sure that they're getting all their benefits. If you're not sure what service connected is, basically what happens is when we go into the military, we're perfectly healthy. When we come out of the military, maybe we're not so healthy. Maybe we broke a bone or we had something go on, whether it was mental, physical, an illness, whatever. When something happens to you while you're on military duty, the VA, as I like to say to people that don't really maybe understand all the veteran stuff, we let the government take responsibility for that injury or that illness. And when the government takes responsibility for it, you're considered service connected. And then depending on the level of the disability, there's a percentage of disability, 10%, 0%, 100% disability that you're rated. And along with the percentages is money, a lot of money. The funds that we bring into the county are tax-free federal dollars. Through COVID, we've been able to maintain our services with some caveats. We cannot do in-person appointments anymore, but we are continuing to serve our veterans via email, Zoom, such as this, phone calls and email. So we're still processing claims. We actually had, between when COVID started for us, March 16th, it was the last day we were in the office, through July, we have assisted, we've assisted over 1,500 veterans, and over 500 of them are actually new to us. So through COVID, we're still seeing our clients. Just since COVID, we've brought in over $24 million tax-free federal dollars to the county in retroactive payments to our veterans. And that turns out to be $4.8 million per month recurring every month that we're bringing in for our residents here in Suffolk County. We also see, we can help any veteran anywhere in the country and anywhere in the world. Our accreditation is national, but of course we're Suffolk County, so we're more specific to Suffolk County. So that's our main role, is to advocate for our veterans, make sure that they're linking up to VIBE. So I know it's a wonderful organization. The Dwyer Project, all these different organizations, we all kind of work together. So we see each other at a lot of meetings, we have relationships. So when we refer people out, we all work in our circle. So if you call one, you can get us all, basically. As far as the Suffolk County, the Career Center with the Department of Labor that they asked me to bring in, it is, I'm sorry, I just got this information today. They actually launched a job portal that they call Suffolk County Forward, and it's for veterans that they can actively go in and seek jobs. Employers can also post there. Veterans get a 24-hour preference for any job posted to the site. Sorry, I'm just kind of reading this through. Yeah, so basically it's a website that's interactive that veterans can go and look for jobs, employers can go look at jobs. I know they also do resume building. Long Island Cares also has a problem that does resume building through Vets Work. But the Department of Labor, Patrick Stay, I know him, he's the veterans coordinator for jobs over there. wonderful. You know, he's a veteran himself. Again, it's very important when we're dealing with the public to let them know that we are veterans, because it kind of gives us an instant rapport in such a way. So Patrick's Day is absolutely fantastic. I know they're not seeing people in person, but, you know, via phone, email, Zooms, and this new website, which I think is great, you know, to have a website specific just because of COVID and to help veterans. It's fantastic. So thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this. This is great.
This is wonderful. You know, the fact that you said that you're an advocate to the veterans, and sometimes we need that sense of direction. So, you know, it's very important. You know, I just want to say that, you know, gaining an understanding of the issues pertaining to veterans' needs and the health and the well-being is important, not only to the veterans, but also to the families. Like you've mentioned, you know, very strong, but then they might come out differently. So it's important that their well-being is very taken care of. And, you know, they, like you said, they sometimes experience anxiety, fear, helplessness during any kind of emergency issue.
Right.
So just knowing the signs and how to help, it's very key and very important. So thank you, everyone here, all our special guests being here, and thank you. At this moment, I would like to turn it to Daphne Irizarry. She will start off with some of the questions that we have. Again, thank you so much for being here. Really honored to have you here.
Thank you, Lucia. And so we'll start with questions for all the panelists. And we know that the pandemic has impacted all populations, but how has the pandemic affected the veteran population? We could start with Ms. Rapp, please.
Okay, I mean, the pandemic is affecting so many of us pretty similarly. We're all isolated and having no connection. But as far as the veterans, they're already, before the pandemic, they are already at high risk. Their population due to PTSD, unemployment, housing issues, and that aside from any kind of substance abuse, comorbidities, anything like that, their mental health issues. So putting these strict guidelines on them is even more stressful, and you know, it's just adding additional stressors to the veterans, and their chance of homelessness, their chance of even getting COVID is that much greater with veterans that are homeless, or veterans that are living, you know, on their own and not really attending to, you know, the guidelines that we all are. It's difficult for them, and it's not easy for any of us, but if they, again, are having mental health issues and they have some kind of substance issues, they're not really mindful of those type of protocols that we all need to follow in order not to get the virus. So I think that that puts them, you know, double the risk that they already are at, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ms. Rapp. Ms. Chambers, how do you see this pandemic affecting the veterans population and their families too?
So as Ms. Rappin already said, some of the issues are the legal issues, family issues, the social isolation, their ability to get to the mental health providers, if dealing with physical disabilities, being able to get physical therapy that need, and some of them are actually being triggered at this particular event. So what they're saying is that there's a lot of bodies, and it reminds them of them being in war, not being able to do anything about it. Some of them are saying this is the government telling us what to do again, because when you are in the military, you know, they tell you where to go, when to go, how to sit, how to stand, when to eat. So right now, pretty much similar to that, they're reminded of that by all of the, you know, businesses that are limited in their openings, but now we're in a different phase. But at the beginning of the pandemic, it was a reminder to them that, okay, this is reminding of where I was before the military. So they're dealing with a lot of, retriggering events, inabilities to find employment. And so, yeah, the loss of the loved ones is a thing because they're seeing a lot of, things on the news, hearing on the radio, on social media, as far as the numbers of deaths related to the COVID. So that's what I'm seeing.
Thank you, Ms. Chambers. It's very interesting to learn how the restrictions and the limitations that this pandemic has imposed in our behavior as in the society have triggered, the veteran population. That is very interesting. As someone who's not a veteran, it's important for us to understand that. Ms. Green, any other different impacts that you have seen in the veteran population?
A few things that have come to our attention. A lot of our veterans also suffer from, they feel like they they need to do acts of kindness. So they are accustomed to helping other veterans, or they are also accustomed to going to places like the Bristol or taking other veterans to make sure they get their medications and do things like that. And because of the pandemic, they cannot make actual contact with veterans. So they find themselves more isolated. They like the buddy system. They like doing things with each other. So since they are in lockdown mode, they can't, we do as much as we can with them, maybe calling and things like that, but they're not actually making personal contact. So they feel isolated. They don't have their battle buddies. They feel alone. This triggers a lot of them, with PTSD and, things like that. So they sometimes are doing more self-medicating and, feeling. And then another thing that I've heard other veterans share, that they're concerned, they're really on watch because they're concerned about the homeland security with the pandemic and what's happening with the country. And, so, they have all of these different triggers going on, that they have that is putting them in mode of, hypervigilant. They're just worried and, concerned and, ready to go into action of what may need to be done. So I find that to be a major problem, especially, and then Northport was closed. So a lot of veterans go there just to talk to each other. Just to, they like to just be around each other when they go to their appointments. So they miss, that contact as well.
Yeah, thank you. And obviously, that lack of contact with those who have experienced similar things as you, I imagine, have to be very different and increases perhaps the levels of fears and anxieties and all of those strong emotions.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. And I meant to add a big one, not just increased anxiety, but they have a lot of sleep issues. And watching the news a lot, they're not sleeping and they're up all hours of the night. Things like that. Their sleep patterns are completely out of whack. Regular civilians are having that problem. So it's even more, it's, magnified with our veterans.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Especially because they have served our country to keep us safe. So when the safety of our country is, at risk, I imagine that has to be a tremendous trigger. Ms. Pandolf, what about what you have seen that this pandemic has affected the veteran population?
The immediate thing that we noticed, Delmar just touched on it, is the limited access to the VA. The day that we left work, it was March 16th, it was Monday, I got a call from a veteran, so upset. He's a Vietnam veteran, and Vietnam veterans have been through enough. They are very near and dear to my heart. They already struggle a lot and have a lot of trust issues with the government. But this gentleman called me freaking out, literally, because his groups, mental health groups, were canceled by the VA. These gentlemen need these groups. It took them so long just to come to terms with what they've been through in the first place. And now they're in their early 70s and they're now just starting to deal with it. And now their program was taken away that's giving them all their support. The VA shutting down was a huge problem. It's still a huge problem. We still have a problem with them, getting the appointments. And it's not that we don't understand that. It's try to explain that to somebody that is depending on it. And sometimes it's their lifeline. They need those groups. So that was a very serious issue. It continues to be an issue. Our agency, my director, Tom Renane, continues to advocate to get these veterans back with them. They closed all the CBOCs, which are community-based outpatient clinics through the VA. They're all shut down. So Northport is all that's there, but I have people on the East End that are not going to drive 2 hours to where they got to go, which is why Riverhead was there. But with everything closed down, it is a huge, huge problem. And as far as COVID itself, veterans, just by being a veteran, you're at a higher risk. You're at a higher risk to get COVID because many veterans have illnesses to begin with. So they're already in a high risk category. Just like Delmar said, these guys, they're isolated again. They're removed from everybody. Their support systems have been shut down. You can't tell some of these guys to go online and do something because they're not going to do it. That's the bottom line. And that's been our biggest thing is a significant amount with the mental health and them getting the services and the true support that they need. So that's our biggest concern.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And again, as I said, as someone who's not a veteran, it's so important for us, and I'm sure a lot of our participants also are not, to understand the needs of the veterans and the impact that this pandemic has had in this population. I understand Miss Lewis left, right? Lucia? She had to leave? Yes. Okay. So we'll move then to the next question, which are what are some contributing factors that lead veterans to mental health issues? I think that some of you have touched on this, but if you have any additional information on this question to answer this question, that will be great. Ms. Rapp?
So I think that a lot of what I've seen in my experience, that a lot of veterans come to me with many layers of complex PTSD. They not only have their military trauma experience, whatever they experienced there as far as combat or exposure to violence, death among their cohorts, they enter into the service, a very large percentage, having come from childhood trauma, whether it be domestic violence, sexual assault, that kind of thing. So a lot of their families were not healthy environments, and maybe dysfunctional, and maybe they were on their own at a young age. And a lot of them will go into the service, that from my experience, and they feel like, they're going to have a new family in there. They're going in to get an education and to serve their country. So they put all that behind them. They start and turn over a new leaf. They go into the military, and now they're exposed to, numerous amounts of exposure to effects that will leave them, whether it's TBI, whether it's injuries, whether it's all the war itself. So much there that's giving them that. And now everything that has been underlying rises to the top. So I think that that complexity in their levels of trauma begin to surface, and they start acting out. They start using alcohol. They may get themselves, a lot of the dishonorable discharge and getting kicked out of the military and being threatened with court-martial. Those things leave them very disheartened. They go there with with good intentions, and then they come out, and then they have that to bear. They have that cross to bear when they come out. And then coming in, reintegrating and back into their communities, back into family life, that's a whole nother thing, because now, if they're going to their homes, their parents, their wives, their husbands, they are not always forthright in what's gone on and what's happening and things that they don't even want to address. So I think that kind of circumvents just spirals out of control, and their lack of willingness to want to go and report this or to get help because they just feel that, that makes them more, maybe makes them weak, and they don't want to go that route. So it takes a long time before they realize that they have no other choices. And hopefully, God willing, they do go get therapy that they desperately need. But I would blame a lot of it on complex PTSD, things that surface from their childhood often.
Yes, thank you. And it's definitely very interesting to hear that a lot of these contributing factors begin before they even serve. So it's something to be mindful of. Ms. Chambers Murphy?
Yes, so she already hit on some of the topics, but as she said, some of the are pre-existing mental health conditions before they actually go in. So when they go in, their mental health system, their illnesses are exacerbated due to the stress they're being put under during combat, or just even if they're on combat, just stress of dealing with getting acclimated with what's happening. If they were just mobilized, didn't go anywhere, it's still a stressful situation that they're dealing with. And so some contributing factors, which she mentioned, are, the alcoholism, depression, the unemployment, the financial stress, the family discord, self-medicate, all those different things come from maybe pre-existing things that happened to them in their childhood or in their early adulthood that, exacerbated and caused them to be, in the situation that they're in right now.
Yes, thank you. And as I said earlier, I can't help but think of my own nephew, who as you are all speaking, reminds me of that, yes, he did go into the military with the bipolar condition. So we have seen the condition gotten worse as he came out. So thank you. Yeah, Ms. Green, please.
Also, to add to that, some other factors are that I can't stress enough that they're used to military. Our veterans are accustomed to having a clear mission, and they're also used to having a plan. And when they get out, there's no clear plan anymore. There's no mission for them. This is a training that they've been embedded. So when they come out of the military, there's no plan, there's no end in sight of their current situation. They feel like they're helpless and hopeless, whether they get out because they choose to, because they're put out, or even within retirement. They belong to an organization that
Ellos pertenecen a una organización.
And what has happened now is they're no more a part of this brotherhood, and they're just put out there, and their families don't really understand if they're not connected, and they seem very much, it makes them more isolated and alone.
Yes. Thank you. It seems like, they lose some kind of focus, right? And some kind of goals and mission. Ms. Pandolf?
So I just want to make clear, most times when people hear PTSD or post-traumatic stress, they think combat. It is very important that everybody understands, just in general, post-traumatic stress could happen from anything at any time to anybody, regardless of where they're serving, whether they're in theater or not. And it's very hard when people come into our office and they're discussing things. I was a combat veteran, I don't have this. It doesn't matter if you're a combat veteran. When you start speaking to people, we're not therapists, but we're kind of like attorneys, therapists, counselors, we're all this rolled up in one. But when they start speaking, you realize like you might have like you're depressed, or you have anxiety, and are you hypervigilant, and are you this? And then when you have conversations with them, they start realizing like, oh, okay. And the first thing is I tell them, I'm like, every good counselor has a counselor. I have my standing appointment with mine every Thursday at 5. So you can tell me whatever you want to tell me, because I'm scooting right down the road at 5 o'clock on Thursday and unload on that person. So you know, we try to make things more normal, if you want to put it that way, like, hey, everybody's got a counselor type of thing. And, you know, as far as post-traumatic stress and mental health in general, I think veterans have a hard time transitioning, as Delmar and everyone said. You know, you're in this strict, you know exactly what you do and who you are, what you're doing. And then when you leave the service, you're like, where do I fit in here? You know, I was active duty for 4 years. I was activated 4 years. Then when I went into the Guard, and then I was a guardsman, and I completed 22 years of service. I was coming and going. And I think a lot of mental health things come in play too, because, you know, always keep in mind the Guard and the Reserves, especially here on Long Island, because they're a significant part of our population. But you know what, 2 weeks ago, they were in Iraq or Afghanistan shooting, blowing stuff up. And now they're home, and they're expected to come home, take care of the spouse, the kids, and go back to work in an office and wear a suit. They can't decompress. My family doesn't, my husband, my children, well, my daughter is now active duty Navy, so I'll take her out. But my husband and my other children, they don't really understand anything I've been through, so it's hard to have a conversation with them. So I always talk to my dad because he's a veteran, or I talk to one of my cousins that are a veteran. So, you know, as Delmar, you know, we all have the same thoughts, is we need that veteran contact, and to be able to discuss mental health with somebody, or things that are going on with them. You know, you're drinking too much. As a veteran, I'd be like, dude, you're drinking too much. What are you doing? You know, what's going on? Where'd you go to? Let's have a conversation. But a mom's not going to say that to her son, because she's just going to see that he's drinking, but not understand there might be stuff. You know, they always say the iceberg. You see the tip of the iceberg, and there's all that stuff underneath. You know, so veterans in general, I think they, you know, there's a lot of triggers for them. You know, it could be anything that triggers them, but the biggest thing is talking about it, getting veterans and just the community to understand that, you know, people come in, I'm sure Dwyer has this all the time. People come into my office cursing up a storm and blaming the world for everything. And you just kind of sit back and say, obviously you're frustrated. Let's have a conversation. You don't take it personally. It's about understanding them, you know, and taking care of them and trying to make mental health more normal. Also, I want to state with our Guard and Reservists, because I think sometimes they're left out of these conversations. They get veteran status after they come back from an active duty tour of any type, whether it's stateside or overseas. In the military, everybody's going to preach mental health. Go seek, you know, treatment. Go talk to somebody. Go talk to somebody. You're very not likely to do that because you're afraid for your career. You can't really vent. And then I find, and this is through doing claims and everybody I'm working with, people are seeking treatment, but now they're getting the boot. And they're not being discharged because of mental health diagnoses. It's the medications that cause them to not be worldwide qualified and to lose their status. So if they don't want to seek treatment because, you know, they're too strong for that. They don't want to seem weak and all these other things. But when they do seek treatment, now if they need medication, that's what's going to disqualify them from continuing to serve. Mm-hmm. And that's where there's a huge thing in the, you know, the Guard and Reserve, because they want to seek these things. That's why Dwyer is so important. I cannot, you know, preach them. They're anonymous. You don't have to sign in. John always tells me sign in is Elvis Presley. I don't care. They have no duty to report. That is a place where everybody can go and just do what they got to do. They can vent, release it out, be in a peer, and have no repercussions. It is the best thing going. I will preach it all day and all night.
Yes. And I think that's a good segue to our next question, which is what are some of the things that we can do, communities can do, to support our veterans, you know, especially those of us who are not familiar. And I thank you for all these clarifications that you have brought to the table, because you make a lot of assumptions sometimes, not understanding what the world is like for a veteran or the people around a veteran. So which are some of the ways that we can help and support veterans? Melissa, we start with you. I know you mentioned, you know, a little bit on it. So if you want to expand, and then we'll go to Denise.
So to be able to, we used to go to the police academy, our agency, and also Dwyer. We did a tag team thing. We'd go to police academy and teach the non-veterans of the police academy how to identify a veteran. So you can identify a veteran by wearing, you know, if you see them wearing a hat, you know, shirt, coin, you know, there's different ways that you can learn to identify a veteran. I think the biggest thing is when you're speaking to somebody, just don't assume anything. Like you said, you know how many conversations I've had? People have no idea I'm a veteran. No idea. They just think my husband's the veteran. He never served. You know, so it's always very important, like you said, don't assume anything. Have conversations with them. You know, families, I know there's a support group out there for some families for post 9/11 veterans, but I wish that there was a group for families, like the spouse and parents, to be able to go to help better understand their son or daughter if they do come back from a deployment and they're not the same. Because usually that's what'll happen. Mom will call and they'll say, can you just fix my son? I don't know what's wrong with them. And they don't know how to communicate with them. So I think a lot of it is forums just like this, because I think we're on Facebook Live, you said. Anybody can listen to these. You know, people see the word veteran and say, well, that's for veterans, let's leave it over there. Everybody can listen to these conversations that we're having because everybody knows a veteran and you can all learn. And it's education, it's awareness, it's about, you know, I try to, like I said before, I try to normalize things. Like everybody has a counselor, or go over to Dwyer, and, you know, everybody does it. And when you start to get people to kind of trust you and open up and you build that rapport, then you're able to help them move forward. You know, it's really, it's education, it's awareness. It's about, don't be afraid to ask the questions. You know, if you see a veteran, they're really like yelling, or I had a gentleman yell at me the other day in ShopRite, you know, and I'm like, and the manager came over and he was just aggravated because apparently I wasn't exactly 6 feet from him. But the manager came over and said, you know, I'm sorry. And I said, he's not mad at me. He's mad at something, but he's not mad at me, you know. And you try to like take a step back and say, this person's angry for a reason. And that's what general in public, when you see people that are not acting as appropriate or mean, however you want to put it, just take a step back and just think for a second. Maybe he's a veteran and saw some stuff. Maybe she's this and saw some stuff. You just don't know what people are going through. So I just believe just exactly what we're doing, these webinars, talking in public, having conversations, teaching kids in schools about mental illness. Kids are very affected by all of this. Yes. And a lot of people forget that. This trickles down. It's not just about the veteran, it's about everybody. Yeah. All the way down to the little kids, because they miss their parents and all they know is that they went away for a while.
Yeah,
it's very difficult.
The impact definitely goes beyond the
oh, absolutely. And I'll just tell you a quick story, because I read about this stuff all the time. I had a little boy was, you know, didn't want to sleep at his friend's house. And they, you know, the teachers, and so he's shy, this and the other thing. He doesn't want to, you know, really socialize. No, he didn't want to sleep there because his dad had his phone with the alarms on it, and the alarms are set for their medications. And the son is afraid that if he's not home and dad doesn't hear his alarm, he's going to forget to take his medication. So people don't think about that. Or the little girl that fell asleep in class and the teacher says, you know, maybe you shouldn't play so many video games or turn off your TV earlier. No, she's waiting for the 3 a.m. phone call from the other side of the world to maybe talk to her mom. Or maybe she hasn't heard from her mom and she's stressed out and she can't sleep. And instead of focusing on her 2 + 2 math problem, why don't you say, you know what? Why don't you write a letter to mom? I'll teach you math a little later. It's understanding. And when I tell you it trickles all the way down, I have 4 children and they were very small when I was in the military going back and forth, and my husband took care of them and my family. So it's the whole family support system, mom, dad, aunts, uncles. Everybody just has to be aware. I know I'm rambling and I'm sorry. It's just such a near and dear to my heart that, you know, the family and education. Really,
I believe
have the conversation.
You know, the passion comes through, and I think you have made very important points, especially about us taking the time to learn and to educate ourselves about this important population that has served our country, protected us, and you know, struggle every day with these things. These are the ways that we could show gratitude, by being understanding, patient, and seeking awareness. Ms. Denise Ram, you wanted to share something?
Yes.
After, yeah, sure.
Yes. So we're still on question 4 then, right? For the communities.
Yes. How can we show support for the veterans?
I had wanted to just add one thing that Melissa had mentioned about support groups and something like that for the families and the children. And that's exactly what my program is. It is for veterans and their families, their spouses, their children. So I welcome them. I encourage them. If I'm in a store and I hear that, oh, my son is, in the military, my daughter's overseas, I tell her, listen, if you need to help dealing with them being away, or when they come home, if they need it, if you need it, anyone in your family. So that's a big part of our program too, which I think that was a great point to bring up, because it is so important. They need to understand what their family members and their loved ones are going through, so that they aren't judging, they're not getting frustrated, because I think that's a big part. I mean, I know I was actually mentioning, I was going to mention this, I don't know if we passed question 3 already, but what contributes to the homelessness? I think that's a big part also, when they're alienated from families, when they just don't want to share, and now they're, they have the comorbidities, they have all these substance abuse issues, and now they don't have family because they, just distanced themselves and they couldn't relate. So they're unemployable, those kind of things. So as far as the communities being able to help more, I think it's important, like she said, to learn about what they're going through, be less judging, go to your local church ministries. And I know in my church, they have every Monday night is the haven for, they put out like 30 beds and they have a huge dinner, and the volunteers are just, they love coming because they're at least, I think there's a stigma attached to homeless veterans, and that just breaks my heart. So to be able to go and to help and to share a meal with them, not just serve them food, sit down with them, talk to them, play checkers. They have games in this haven and they're involved with them, and it's a beautiful setup that they have. So just donating a couple of hours of time, not, you don't have to spend a week there. It's just one night a week. And I know that they have them in many places. So I think that's one of the best volunteer opportunities that you can do. And, you relate to them, and you talk to them like human beings, and they realize that you don't judge them, and you're not thinking that they're on the corner with a sign and saying all this. They're real people that have real loves and passions and family, that they just, they're just down and out right now, and they just need respect.
Mhm.
I think that's a big thing that we can do for them. That's the biggest thing,
Yes.
I really am passionate about that, because it's so easy to just go past someone, not look at them, and, or question, are you really a veteran? That kills me. How could you say that? They say they're a veteran, you believe they're a veteran. Who would want to say that, if it's not true? So don't judge. And I think that's what our community, that kind of education for our community is important. So I'm glad that this is airing live, and maybe people will, see it, just like everybody else that just doesn't have a job. They're just not on the unemployment line as readily as, an able-bodied, someone with no mental health issues, or does not have the trauma that has carried with them for many years.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Delmar?
I can't stress enough and piggyback on what was said as well with the schools. With the supporting the community. We need to get more into the schools, especially with the children. I'm a spouse of a veteran, a daughter of a veteran, a mother-in-law of a veteran, and a mother soon to be of a veteran. So it has so much burden that I have two situations. I was in a community for military, which was, they were more understanding. But the first Persian Gulf War, I made the decision to come to New York. And I was in a community that did not understand what military life was like. My children were little, they were in school, but I belonged to a beautiful church, and they were in church school at the time. And the teachers, they would stop class, they would pray with my kids, they wrote letters, they sent care packages. So that community became a part of my children, and talking about their dad being at going to war. I'll never forget. My daughter wouldn't let me, back then, I'm dating myself, we had answering machines, and she did not want, my husband left a message, and she said, Mommy, let's not erase it, because in case something happens to Daddy, we always have his voice. And she was only in the first grade. So we don't understand, and our children are in the community. They're a part of the community. So it's affecting our children, our families, as well as the veteran. And I want to add, I run in our organization, the spouses group and the family group, with our peer-to-peer. I cannot stress enough that if anybody, not only if you have a family member, but if you have a friend that's a veteran, please come, listen, just hear. Maybe you can learn something, and you can have something that you can talk to them, you're a veteran, about. You can reach out better. The more you know, the more you can reach out to veterans, and help, or just listen, or just be there with no judgment. No judgment. But it's very important that, America, we love our country, and we love, when our troops go off, and we're rah rah. But then when they come back, we have to have the same enthusiasm, and we have to have the same programs. Call your congressman, call the Senate, call the House. Make sure they don't take money from veterans organizations. Make sure money stays. And anybody in the community can do that. You don't have to know a veteran. You should, as strong as you are about your military going off to do for our country, you need to be as strong, making sure that the funding stays there for all of the programs that we need, that is very necessary to help our veterans. And a lot of times our veterans do not go to the VA in these places, because they come to our organization because they're angry. They've been turned away. They've gone there, they've told them what their problems are, and they don't get a rating for it. They're saying that, that, okay, so this is bothering you or whatever. They don't, well, because the doctor didn't write it like this, you don't have any rating. You're turned down. And it hurts them, and then they don't go back. So these other organizations like ours, veterans will come to us after we talk to them for a while. Then sometimes we can get them to go back to apply for things over again. So we are like a bridge a lot of times to help them to go back. So the community can really help veterans just by listening, educating, and advocating.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And definitely have made a very strong point. Veterans matters. And that we all need to give our support to the veterans. And Ms. Chambers Murphy, would you like to add in terms of what do you think the community can do to support veterans?
Well, basically, I think it's been said, but organizations like the Wire, the IAEA, Warriors, DFWs, American Legions, DAV, and community agencies, they all are volunteering their time. They're offering free services to assist veterans when they need. There are community agencies working together, putting together resource lists of what numbers, contact information, what services they provide, and they're sharing that among the community. They're doing virtual resources. So more people need to do virtual resource fairs. They need to get that information out there as to what's available, to people that need information. Education is key, as was said several times. The more you know, the better you are. The more educated you are, the more informed, and you can help better serve the veterans. Also, some mental health counselors are offering free services online, which I think is a great idea. Some more providers, I think, offering services online with legal or whatever services to the veterans. I think that would be great. So just everybody joining in, as they have been doing, offering free job training, the resume writing workshops, just scholarships for veterans to go to school online, anything that the community can do to get to understand these veterans and help them out would help.
Thank you. And I thank you all because I have received a tremendous education tonight about veterans, and I definitely understand much better my nephew and those, loved ones that are around me who are also friends and veterans. And before I pass the mic to Lucia, my last question to you is, in your opinion, do veterans experience a high risk of homelessness? And it has been mentioned by some of you. And if so, what are some of the reasons for this situation? And I'll start with this time with Ms. Chambers Murphy.
Sure. Yes, I do believe veterans experience a higher level of homelessness, and the reason being, part of it is because of their mental health issues once they come out of the military. Some of it could be due to their discharge type, that they're not able to get a job, or if they do apply for certain jobs, there's some codes that if an agency or organization runs background check, it comes up, it might have a code to say something with substances, but doesn't say whether it was selling the substance or whether they were using substance. So there are specific codes that are on their discharge paperwork that may limit them from obtaining certain jobs. I have a gentleman right now going through something like that he's trying to get his discharge upgraded because of specific code. Every time he applies for a job, he's unable to do it. And so the socioeconomic status of them is less than, because they're not getting jobs that they're really capable of doing. They're trying to translate their military experience into civilian, but they're not equal. And so they're not able to get the same pay. And so when they start to have all these different issues, they can't find a job, they're unemployed, they begin to depress, so they begin to drink, maybe their PTSD or substance, their mental health issues. All of this, these experiences are what causes them, I think, or attributes to the inability to sustain certain types of employment or level of employment, and to the homelessness. And also some of them still trust the government anymore, and so rather would than to give any type of anything to the government. So it's very difficult, and it's like a mental health issue that they're dealing with.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Chambers. Ms. Pandolf, would you like to add to that in terms of, what are some of the risks of experiencing homelessness?
So just from my office experience, a lot of times it's difficulty getting a job because there are employers that think, all veterans are damaged or have something going on. So they don't want to hire veterans. As Sharon said, our experiences in the military, the terminology we use in the military has to translate to the civilian world or they don't understand. An E7 master sergeant, you're a superintendent. You're pretty high up there. You've done a lot of things. Your skills are not translating over, and that's a big problem. So we need organizations, like I know Vets Work and Department of Labor, they have their resume writing skills, programs for veterans for us, because they help us translate the military terminology to the civilian terminology that, more employers would understand. I also think that there's a big difference, cultural differences. People just don't understand, at 19 years old, you're overseas, whether you're in a combat area or you're stationed in Europe, your world experiences are just totally different. So at 19, I don't want to use the word more mature, but your life experiences are so much greater than somebody else that graduated high school with you, went to college, experienced college. They don't have the same experiences. So even though you're 19 or you're 20 or you're 21, I would say most of the time people leaving the service, if they do a tour, is like 21, 22. Employers don't understand that might seem young and I don't have this piece of paper or degree in my hand, but look at all this wealth of experience that I have and what I can bring to the table. And employers just can't wrap their heads around it if they're not veterans and they're not used to it. I think another big thing is, again, I'm going to go back to the Guard and Reserve. On Long Island, it's a very big population. Guard and Reservists, it's like hiring somebody full-time. I mean, part-time. If I apply for a job with Vibes, but I'm a guardsman or a reservist, I have a commitment to the military. I might get deployed for 4 months. So I'm still on your books. You can't hire anybody else because it's against the law to fire me or lose my job because I got orders. But I left for 4 months and now I come back and I have to get back into my job, but you're down an employee for 4 months. And that happens, you know, through the years. You know, personally, the last, I think, 8 years of my career, I was more active duty and away than I was home. So it was very difficult for me to have a job because I'm like, who's going to hire me? I'm gone every other month doing this, that, or the other thing. So Guard and Reservists, especially as far as Long Island, I think they have a very difficult time because they're managing 2 jobs, and to get a full-time regular job when they're going to be gone half the time, especially since we're at war, that's a big deal for employers. So it makes it very difficult for them. You know,
Yeah.
and again, I think it's just the readjustment itself. Like we said it earlier, you know, I think Del Mar said it, you know, transitioning from active duty to the civilian side, it's like, I was the boss 6 months ago, and now I'm the low man on the totem pole. You know, it's an adjustment thing. You got to put your attitude in check sometimes, and, you know, coming out of that, and it's just difficult. It can be really hard.
Yeah, thank you very much. Ms. Rapp, in terms of, you know, what you have seen in your agency, why are veterans more at risk of homelessness?
Pretty much what I was mentioning before. I think just the amount of mental health issues, and if they are homeless, that lends itself to being, you know, unemployable for certain mental health issues. And that is, again, with the sleep issues, we've mentioned that before. If they're not able to sleep, if they're having severe symptoms of PTSD and they're hypervigilant throughout the night, or they're, you know, constantly being triggered by nightmares, they're not able to sleep, so they're therefore not able to hold down a job, whether they're late, whether they're missing days at work. So now they have a bad record, and that will now roll into another employee. So you're not getting a good reference because you weren't able to show up, and you weren't reliable. And, you know, if you're having hypervigilance at work, and you're in a crowded supermarket and someone walks up to you, now you're, you know, you're reacting to customers, you're reacting to your boss. If you get told to do something and they take it in a bad way because of their mental health issues, it's just difficult to maintain a steady personality sometimes when you're dealing with all that they're dealing with. And that becomes an issue, and they've lost many jobs from that, in my experience. So I think that's, it lends itself then to not being able to pay for their apartment, not being able to pay for a vehicle, for insurance, and you have, you know, the remedy, the recipe for homelessness once again. And if they've alienated their family members, or they went into the military because they ran away from their family, then they really have no family to come back to. So all those factors are so intertwined that they contribute to all these things that makes them so at risk.
Definitely very complex to understand, you know, all those challenges and how they manifest and how they impact their lives and the lives of those around the veterans. Ms. Delma, would you like to add to that conversation, to that question about the homelessness and the risk?
Pretty much both. They pretty much said what I was thinking. Everything, I'm shaking my head, yes. But maybe the only thing that pretty much I can add is you know, they sometimes, believe it or not, people just don't want to hire veterans. I know it's hard, people don't believe that, but a lot of times people just don't want to be bothered. They feel like all the different problems or stigmas or whatever, they don't want to be bothered with veterans, so they just don't hire them. And then of course everything else that was already stated, if they ran away from family, so they don't have anybody to fall back on when they get out, or their family doesn't understand and they put them out, or and then the big one, what you said, PTSD, up late at night, not sleeping, then sleeping at work. Civilians don't understand that. So they really don't realize all the things that veterans go through. And then after a while, so much rejection, then what are you going to do? You're going to isolate. And then you just decide, I'd rather just be by myself. And if I can just be out on the street, and I won't even ask for help. Sometimes veterans, they don't even ask anymore.
Yeah, I certainly understood, and it makes more sense, the need then for these support groups that they can relate and they can bond with, because these are people who understand them. And when you don't have that, especially during this pandemic, as you said earlier, everything gets magnified. All those mental health conditions and all those emotions get magnified. Well, you have certainly educated me, and I thank you deeply. I have a greater understanding, and I will seek to have a greater understanding, and also engage in advocacy, as I see is very important. And with that said, I'll give the mic to Lucia. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. I really learned so much today, and I'm so grateful for having you here. A lot of things that I really caught my attention, having a group for families, really to get that support from the family to understand more of veterans, as well as listening, educating, and advocating. So I like the fact that they mentioned about local church ministries and positive thoughts, though. So I'm going to end up with one of the last questions I have here. What are some tips or suggestions that could assist veterans to maintain a positive and healthy mental health? Yes, if we could have Ms. Rapp, you could start off, and then I'll just call on.
Sure. Okay. Some positive health. I think recognizing the symptoms of their stress and their triggers. I think that that's a very important thing, so that they can get in tune with exactly what coping skills would be appropriate for them. Obviously reaching out for help. That's the priority thing. Getting proper medical attention, therapeutic intervention. Those things are definitely the most important things that we hope that the veterans will seek to do. But as far as to do something on their own, if some, things that they can empower themselves with would be, breathing exercises, grounding exercises. I tell all my veterans and their families, those things are so important to regulate their emotions. And those things can be free. If most of them have smartphones, hopefully they have some kind of form of internet, and there's so many free information and research on how to help them to cope with their breathing exercises. And it helps a lot of veterans to do that. Just also keeping a routine, I think, is very important. I also tell a lot of veterans that, whatever routine they had when they were in the military, because they were very, they had their job, they had their duty, they had their structure. And during this pandemic now, it's very hard to keep any kind of structure, but writing things down and not overwhelming themselves with tasks. If they have a lot of things to do, they shut down. So just maybe writing things down and maybe just committing to one or two things for that day to do helps them to feel empowered, helps them to feel like they're doing something productive. And then also my third thing is I just think that music, any type of audio type exercise, whether they listen to music, whether a lot of them play the guitar or play the drums, anything that they can, or build a project. They want to use their hands. So that's another very healthy coping skill. Anything that they could feel productive like they did when they were in the military. They have a purpose. They need a purpose. So those things I think are very healthy coping skills that they can do on their own if they're not reaching out for assistance medically or therapeutically.
Wonderful. Wow, thank you so much. We're going to try to get to the question and answer section, but if we could briefly share as well, Ms. Chamber Murphy, again, the question, what are some tips or suggestions or thoughts that could assist veterans to maintain a positive and healthy mental health?
So some of the things that I suggest, and I'm glad that Denise said it before, I always tell people, dance it out. I love to dance, and music is therapeutic for me. So I say just dance it out. Nobody's watching, nobody's looking. So do that. Meditation, positive affirmations. These are things that they can do on their own. The journaling, they can journal on their own. They don't have to have anybody to do it with them. They can join the support groups online if they like and do yoga. There's yoga free. All these things are free online. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's really helpful. Again, I'm going to ask Ms. Green. Same question.
I agree with everyone else said. One of the things the support groups, I cannot stress those enough. Peer to peer. I know for me, I will swear by it. My husband, when he first, before he even got out of the Marine Corps, he was active duty, and there was so many things going on, and we couldn't put our finger on it. He went to a veterans group, and they were the one to identify what he was going through. And of course, because he was active duty, he couldn't discuss it with anybody, because with the fear of him losing, getting in trouble, or them putting him out, or, the repercussions. So he had to hold it in. A battle buddy. You have a battle buddy while you're in it. I think it's so important to have a battle buddy when you're out. Someone that you trust, or someone that you may have met in one of the support groups. I find with my husband's support group and the one that we're in with the wives, we have each other's number. We check on each other. We call each other. I hear them call each other. They talk to each other. How was your day? How are you feeling today? What's happening? These are the kind of things that, or just foolishness where they just make jokes and they just laugh. Their veterans are trained to have a battle buddy when they're in the military. And I cannot express that I see it works so well when they're out. Not to mention all the other things that everyone else already said, but I have to add, I really stress a battle buddy.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you for your recommendation. And Ms. Pandolf?
So aside from everything that they said, because we all do the same things, they need to know that they're not alone. That is the number one thing. I deal primarily with Vietnam veterans. They're just the largest population right now. When a Vietnam veteran comes in and sees a young person, they're like, what is this one gonna know? And they sit down, I tell them, I go, you guys were in a crap situation. You came home to a crap situation. You got married, you got kids, you pressed on through your life. Now you're at the age where you're all retiring. And now it's all coming back. All that stuff that you suppressed, all that bad stuff that happened, it's now coming up here and it's coming out. And once I tell them that, I'm the daughter of a non-combat Vietnam veteran. I read a lot of books, but once they see like, wow, she gets it. She just hit the nail on the head. Then they talk more. They need that connection, and they need to know that they're not alone. And that's what I tell them. Like, I hear every story under the sun. I get it. So just unload, know you're not alone. And like Delmar says, have a wingman. I was Air Force, so we have wingmen, battle buddies, but it's the same thing. Just have that one person that you connect with. And the most important thing is that they need to know that they are not alone in their thoughts. They are not wrong for what they are feeling. They are not a bad person for what they're doing or feeling. There's just something that they don't know how to handle it, how to fix it. And we just got to give them suggestions to kind of get that stuff out.
Beautiful said. Thank you so much. I appreciate each and every response that you gave us today, and just having that encouragement that they need and the support system that they're not alone. So thank you so much. At this moment, I would like to pass it to Joe, our communication director. He has the Q&A section that he's going to see the questions we have for you this evening from the audience. Joe?
Thank you, Lucia, and hello, everybody. We have a few questions here that have, been asked throughout the different presentations. We'll start off with the first one. With the VA hospital closed, where do we go for care? Also, the Patchogue VA doctor's office is closed. Does anyone know when they will open? Is there anyone on this on our panel that can speak to that?
Yes, this is Sharan. I actually work full-time for the VA, and Dwyer is my part-time job. So right now we are in phase 2 of the reopening process of the VA, which means that there are still things that are closed. Everything is not open. Only certain specialty clinics are being opened, and right now it's like emergent. So they're prioritizing who they're reaching out to. The more serious the situation, those are the ones that they are going to call, ahead. And then, of course, the emergency room is always open, but we do not have a definite date of when everything will be opening. But we are in phase 2 of the reopening process.
Thank you, Sharan. Thank you very much. That was actually very informative.
And also, my program, we're opening up. We have people that can come into the office. I'm in the office 2 days a week, and I do it remotely at home for the rest of the week. And I could go in the community. So we still can be there for any veteran, for PTSD, MST, anything that they need individual counseling for. We are available as an interim until they can get back into the VA should they need something. Until then, we are absolutely an option, and we're free of charge. No charge for anything. No insurance, no requirements, nothing like that. So I welcome anyone to give us a call if they need some therapy before they could get back into the VA.
Thank you, Denise. And maybe Melody, maybe we can put those numbers back and re-enter them into the chat for people. Thank you. All right, next question. I have Richard Ambrosino is looking to open they're looking to open their post so that their officers and members can interact with others under COVID-19 restrictions. Is there a kind of plan that can be followed in order to have meetings? For example, floor place markings. We can put at our posts and masks and gloves. Et cetera, et cetera. Is there anyone that knows of a specific plan for the posts to be reopened? All right, Richard, we will look into that through the Senator's office. The Senator, as you may or may not know, is the chairman of the Committee on Veterans Affairs. So we will certainly look into that. See what kind of restrictions and or allowances can be made for that. If you can just reach out to us at brooks@nysenate.gov with some contact information, we'll make sure we get on top of that as soon as possible. I have a question here. Where are the mobile support units for veterans and widows to provide check-in services and resources? Not everyone can get to Dwyer. Okay. Again, I'm going to ask that person who is just listed as meme. I'm going to ask that person to reach out to us at our office. We will certainly look into that for you. You can, I'll repeat the email address is brooks@nysenate.gov. How long will Northport be closed?
This is Sharan again. I'm going to refer everyone that has questions in regards to when the VA is going to be reopening. That should really be addressed to the Public Affairs Office. they would have the most up-to-date information as far as when Northport will be opening officially.
Okay, do we have a contact for that?
Yes, you can call the main number, once you call the main number at the 631-261-4400, you can ask for public affairs, and they will transfer you over to public affairs.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very, very much. And thank you, Melody. If you look in the chat box, that number has been posted for you. I would like to welcome Gary Glick. Gary is has worked with the senator a lot in the past. He is the, I believe, vice chair of the New York, the New York Jewish War Veterans. And what I'm doing is I'm posting his information, the contact information right now. Gary, do you want to say a couple of quick words? I'm not sure if you can unmute. I think you can talk. All right, well, technical difficulties,
All
but
right, now you hear me?
Yep, we got you, Gary. Thank you.
All right. All right. With I was just texting before. As far as I know, I'm also with the VSOs and all that at Northport. As the Jewish War Veterans next week on 8/25, we are able to go to Northport. There's about 4 of us going there, and we're actually able to deliver. Actually delivering to Building 200, 12 pizzas there to the workers there. As they're letting us go there. We planned this about a week ago, and what I've seen so far, I told you once before, what we did is we built a website that I put out there, we-are-vets.us. And what we did is I got great response. We started this in May, and I have on there Northport VA Hospital. We linked to the state, and people upstate we're linking to, and I'm actually getting people from out of town and mid-state too. I'm getting a hold of guys over there that want to work with us and be part of us. And what we're trying to do on this side is actually get it for all veterans. It doesn't matter. For Legion, Jewish War Veterans, veterans of foreign wars, etc. And what we're doing is getting all the stories there of the veterans. And we're actually putting it on our site. And what we did is we made, if we found a veteran who passed away, whether it be young or old, we put on there and we made memorials there. And we kept them there. And what we did is we started putting stories and history there. And we have a guy who's actually, people are getting fed up because he's sending out emails like crazy, 6, 7 a day. And we're teaching everybody about history. What he actually does is he sits in his room. He's 85-year-old, a Korean War veteran. And he sits in his room, actually. He can't go out because of his wife. And what he does is he actually checks on things. And then what he does after he gets it together, sends it to our friend Eric Spinner. You probably know him. And what he does is then we put it out in emails, and then we put it on our website. And what we found, in just for argument's sake, through history, whether it be regular history, Jewish war veterans, concentration camps, World War I, World War II, we're putting it out there that people didn't even know existed. And we're trying to we have about Vietnam. We put about Korea, like I said. Trying to get the young guys in with Afghanistan. And what I started doing is trying to get help with the PTSD, especially now, because a lot of the guys I understand where you're coming from. And we're trying to do it ourselves with that Thai. I never heard of it before, but I heard, we're trying to get help with others and get them over at Northport, or even in a playground, whatever it may be, and try and get the guys together and be out there. That's what we're trying to do ourselves, because no one else is doing that. And we just thought of something like that to do. And we have a guy named Michael Felix, who you speak about, and he's 74 years old and still with his PTSD from that time. And I spoke with him, and it's scary that sometimes he tells me he sits by his pond and just sits there. And then he goes out there and he fights with himself, with others, not with the VA hospital, et cetera. We all got together with him. And we started working again with Ralph Esposito and Paul Vista and the rest of the other guys. And we all are trying to gang up on and get them to help. And just the other day, it felt good that we went out and we had a press conference. It was only 3 of us, but we didn't give a darn, and started going out there. And it felt good that I was just standing out the VA. And what they did is, am I there? Just lost it.
Garrett,
Yes.
it looks like we lost you there.
Okay.
But listen, just for the sake of time, because we do have to wrap it up, I want
right,
to
I'm
just say
sorry.
thank you.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. No, the information is terrific.
We'd
So
like to
folks-
help to get together with everybody. That's what we would like to do.
Yep. I've posted that. That's once again, that's www.we-re-vetsus.us. It's once again, I posted it on the chat. And Gary, thank you for for your input. Well, folks, that's it on the questions. I'm going to pass it back to Lucia.
Thank you, everyone, for really being here today. We are so grateful, and all the wonderful resources. Again, many of the resources were put in the chat. I know that Long Island Cares have different programs for veterans. I know that Long Island Harvest has another program for veterans. So please, I encourage you to please, reach out to them and reach out to our Senator Brooks' office. We have a lot of different resources as well, and we have a lot of valuable community members that are willing to help. So we have to come together and work together, and education is key. So again, I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight. We're forever grateful for everything you do, for your commitment, your service to the United States, as well as the audience, those who are watching. Thank you so much. And, just so you know that Senator Brooks, he's very supportive in making this informative webinars available to the veteran communities and all communities, in making sure that they're informed of the various aids and resources available in this critical time. So again, we're really grateful. We cannot express how, grateful we are to you. And, I encourage you to please share this. This has been recorded. Facebook, please see it again and again with all the services that are provided and all the wonderful information that our guest speakers share with us tonight. We do have an upcoming webinar, and that's going to be September 3rd. It's going to be with the topic with issues facing women during COVID-19. So we are doing this every 2 weeks. So I encourage you to please share this with organizations, your family, everyone. They're worth of information. So again, thank you so much for being with us today. We're forever grateful, and thank you for taking your time. And please feel free to reach out to this wonderful, guest speakers that we had this evening. And also, just one last thing, Senator Brooks, the state has this wonderful resource guide. It's Veterans Casualty Assistance Program. If you need any, we encourage you to call the office. We have some that we could send out to you. They have wealth of information here as well. So I encourage you to please call the office and get a copy of this. It's a booklet. Okay, and with that, I leave, thank you to Ms. Rapp, everybody who was here again, sharing this wonderful information. Again, have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
And thank you again. And thank you everybody else, the audience, for watching as well. Have a blessed day.
Take care. Good night.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. You
Everybody.
take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.